This is page 128. It's a guided practice for lesson 5.4. There's enough problems on this page that this page will probably take at least two videos. So let's go ahead and get started. Here's our whiteboard, and we're just going to do numbers 1 and 2 to start. Number 1 is 29 and 5/10 divided by 4. And since 4 is a whole number, we don't need to do any decimal movement. When we get over number 2, we're going to have to do something with number 2 before we can start. But number 1's good to go right now. 4 does not go into 2, but it does go into 29 7 times. 7 times 4 is 28. And 9 minus 8 is 1. Bring down this 5. 4 goes into 15 3 times. 3 times 4 is 12. And I annex and I get a 3 here. I'm going to annex a 0. 4 goes into 30 8 times. Nope, 7 times. 7 times 4 is 28. Annex another 0. 4 goes into 20 5 times. 5 times 4 is 20. Minus 20 is 0, so I'm finally done. I'm going to move my decimal straight up. My quotient is 7 and 375 thousandths. All right, number 2. Number 2, the divisor, 3.1, is a decimal. So there's something different about this one than from number 1. And the key is this. Since we have a decimal right there, we have to multiply by a power of 10. That's the same thing as moving the decimal to the right until it becomes a whole number. So if I do that to 3.1, if I multiply it by 10, the decimal would move once to the right. And the key here is if you do that to the dividend, or divisor, you have to do that to the dividend. So I have to move this decimal one place to the right. Now that's going to matter later when I move my decimal straight up to get my quotient. All right, now I can just divide, and I'm just going to imagine this is like 1, 0, 2, that's like 102 divided by 31, and that's going to be 3, because 3 times 30 would be 90. So 3 times 31 would be 93. I just have to subtract carefully. I'm going to borrow. I'm going to make this 12 minus 3 is 9. And 9 minus 9 is 0. So I'm going to bring down this 6 right here. And I already decided that 30 goes into 93 times, so I'm going to put another 3 here. 3 times 31 is 93. Get a difference of 3. And I get to bring down this 1. And 31 goes into 31 once. 1 times 31 is 31. So my digits are 3, 3, and 1, but place the decimal carefully. The decimal was here, it got moved to the right, and then it goes straight up. The answer is 3 and 31 hundredths. And that should make sense, because if we did a little rounding, if we called this 10 and 10 divided by 3, 10 divided by 3 would be about 3. So that actually makes a lot of sense. All right, cool. Let's go ahead and move on. Number 3 is 2 and 4/10. That's the divisor. And that's going into 16 and 8/10. So it's going to be 16.8 divided by 2.4. I'm going to do what I did on number 2. And that is I need to multiply 2.4 times 10 to make it a whole number. And if you multiply the divisor by 10 to make it a whole number, you have to multiply the dividend by 10 to make it a whole number. And now I simply ask myself, how many times is 24 going to 168? 24 is close to 25, and 25 would go into 175 7 times. 7's probably not a bad guess. We should try that. 24 times 7. 7 times 4 is 28. And 7 times 2 is 14, plus 2 is 16. And I guessed it right off the bat, which is really cool. So now 7 goes here. 7 times 24 is 168. Now my decimal got moved right there, and then it goes straight up, so my answer is 7, as in 7 whole. Right, number 4. It is 0 and 96 hundredths, that's my divisor, and 0 and 144 thousandths is my dividend. So this is read as 0 and 144 thousandths divided by 0 and 96 hundredths. And I need to move this decimal 2 places to the right to make it a whole number, which means I need to move this decimal 2 places to the right to match what I did to the divisor. Now, how many times does 96 go into 0? It doesn't. 96 doesn't go into 1. It doesn't go into 14. It does go into 144, just once though. So I'm going to put a 1 here, and then I'm going to do 1 times 96. I'm going to have to borrow. I'm going to have 14. 14 minus 6 is 8. And 13 minus 9 is 4. And 96 does not go into 48, so I'm going to annex a 0. 96 does go into 480. Not sure how many times. I'm going to make a guess. 5 times 96, 96 rounds up to 100. 5 times 96 would be 500, and that's just barely over 480. So I think that's a good try. I think we should try 5, and if that's too high, we'll go back down to 4. 5 times 6 is 30. 5 times 9 is 45, plus 3 is 48. So that was a really good guess, 480. So I'm going to put a 5 here. 5 times 96 is 480. So I subtract and I don't have a remainder, which means I'm done. Now where does the decimal go? It was here, it got moved over here, and then it goes straight up. My answer is 0. These zeros can just get dropped. It's 0 and 15 hundredths. Alright, let's see if we have time for a couple more. Yeah, we can do 2 more problems real quick. This, if we'll do, I'm going to move my page up a little bit. We're going to do here numbers 5 and 6, and then this video, we'll be out of time for this video. Number 5 is 38 and 5 tenths divided by 0 and 5 tenths. And this one's going to be really easy because we are simply going to multiply 5 tenths by 10 to make it a whole number. And we have to do to the dividend what we did to the divisor to match it. So I'm going to move that decimal 1 place to the right. And then I'm just going to divide. 5 goes into 38 7 times. 7 times 5 is 35. And 5 goes into 35 7 times. 7 times 5 is 35. 35 minus 35 is 0, so there's no remainder. My decimal got moved over to the right, and then it goes straight up. Decimal at the end of a number is the same thing as a whole number. So the answer here is 77. That's the same thing as 77 point. Cool. So number 6. 23 and 85 hundredths divided by 9. 9 is a whole number, so I don't have any moving of decimals here. This was like number 1 too. So we don't have to move any decimals. We're good to go right now. 9 goes into 23 twice because 2 times 9 is 18. 23 minus 18 is 5. 9 goes into 58 6 times. 6 times 9 is 54. 9 goes into 45 5 times. 5 times 9 is 45. I'm done dividing. Decimal goes straight up. You get 2 and 65 hundredths. Okay, good job. We are done with the first few problems on page 128.